Hello friends, my name is Jansi Sangani and today we will learn and continue about our stories. So we start. The next evening, your parents and I entered for Banaras, reaching there on the following days. We took a horse cart for some distance, then had to walk through narrow lanes to my guru's scheduled home. Had entering his little parlor, we bowed before the master, enveloped in his habitual posture. He blinked his prizing eyes and leaved them on your father. Bhagwati, you are too hard on your employee. His words were the same as those he had used to 2 days before in the grassy field. He added, I am glad that you have permitted Abhinash to visit me, and that you and your wife have accompanied him. To their joy, he initiated your parents in the spiritual practice of Kriya Yoga. Your father and I, as a brother disciples, have been close friends since the memorable day of the vision. Lahiri Mahashya took a definite interest in your own birth. Your life shall surely be linked with his own. The Master's blessing never fails. Lahiri Mahashya left his world shortly after I had entered it. His picture in an alternate frame always grades our family altar in the various crises and various cities to which father was transferred by his office. Many a morning and evening found mother and me meditating before an improvement and an improvised screen, offering flowers dipped in fragrant sunflowers past, with frankincense and mihras, as well as our united devotees. He honored the divinity that had found full experience in Lahiri Mahashyas. His pictures had a surprising influence over my life, and I grew. The thought of the answer grew with me. In meditation, I would often see this photographic image emerge from its small frame and taking a living form sit before me. When I attempted to touch the feet of his luminous body, it would change and again become the picture. As childhood split into bodyhood, and I found Lahiri Mahashyas transformed in my mind for a little image, cribbed in a frame to a living, enlightening presence. I frequently prayed to him in moments of trial of confusion, finding within me his schooling direction. At first, I grieved because he was no longer physically living. As I began to discover his secret omnipresence, I lamented no more. He had often written to those of his discipline who were over anxious to see him. Why come of view my flesh and bones when I am ever within range of your kutasha? It's a kutasha. At about the age of 8, I was blessed with a wonderful healing through the photograph of Lahiri Mahashyas. This experience gave in intensifications to my love. While at our family estate in Ichirapur, Bengal, I was stringed with Estian Chorela. My life was despaired of. The doctors could not do nothing. At my bedside, mother frequently mentioned me to look at Lahiri Mahasya's picture on the wall above my head. Bow to him mentally. She knew I was too feeble even to lift my hands in situation and in salutation. If you really show your devotions and inwardly kneel before him, your life will be spared. I gazed at his photograph and saw there a building light enveloping my body and entire room. My nausea and other uncontrollable symptoms disappeared. I was well. At once I felt strong enough to bend over and touch mother's feet in appreciation of her immeasurable faith in her guru. Mother mother pressed her head repeatedly against the little picture. Oh, omnipresent master, I think the had daylight had held my son. I realized that she too had witnessed the luminous blaze through which I had instantly recovered from a usually fatal disease. One of my most precious potential is that same photograph given to father by Lahiri Mahashas himself. It carries holy vibrations. The pictures had a miraculous origin. I heard the story from father's brother's discipline, Kali Kumar Roy. I appears that the master had and aversions to being photographed over his protest. A picture was once taken of him and a group of developers and a group of devotees, including Kali Kumar Roy. It was an amazing photographer who discovered that the plate, which had a clear images of all the disciplines and revealed nothing more than a blank space in the center, where he had a seriously and where he had a reasonably expected to find the outline of the Lahiri Mahashyas. The phenomenon was widely discussed. A student who was an expert photographer, Gangadhar Babu, boasted that the fugitive figure would not accept him. The next morning, as the Guru sat in the lotus posture on a wooden bench with the screen behind him, Gangadhar Babu arrived with his equipment. Taking every precaution for success, he greatly exposed 12 plates. On each one, he soon found the imprint of the wooden bench and screen. But once again, the master's form was missing. With tears and started prayed, Gangadhar Babu shot out his guru. It was many hours before Lahiri Mahashayas broke his silence with a pregnant comment. I am spirit. Can you camera reflect the omnipresent, invisible? I see it cannot, but holy sir, I lovely desire a picture of your bodily temple. My vision has been a narrow. Until today, I did not realize that in you the spirit fully develops. Come. Then tomorrow morning I will pose for you. Again, the photographer focused his camera. This time, the scared figure, not clocked with mysterious imperceptibility, was sharp on the plate. The master never posed for another picture. At least I have seen none. The photographer is reproduced in this book. Lahiri Mahashia's fair features of a universal caste hardly suggest to what race he belonged. The joy of good communication is slightly relieved in his enigmatic smile. His eyes, half open to denote nominal interest in the outer world, are also half closed, indicating his absorption in inner bills, obvious of the poor user of the earth. He was fully awake at the all time to spiritual problem of seekers who approached for his boundary. Shortly after my hailing throat, the potency of the Guru's pictures, I had an influential spiritual vision. Sitting on my bed one morning, I fell into a deep revive. What is behind the darkness of closed eyes? This probing thought came powerfully into my mind. An immense flash of the light at once manifested to my inner gaze. A divine shape of Sant sitting in meditation posture in mountain caves, formed like miniature cinema pictures on the large screen of radiance within my forehead. Who are you? I spoke aloud. We are the Himalayas yogis. I, cel- I celestial response is difficult to describe. My heart was thrilled. Ah, I long to go the Himalayas and because like you and become like you. The vision vanished, but the silvery becomes expanded in ever winding circle of infinity. What is the wondrous glow? I am Ishvara. I am a light. The voice was in murmuring clouds. I want to be one with thee. Out of the slow uh, diviling of my divine ecstasy, I felt a permanent legacy of inspiration to seek God. He is eternal, ever new joy. This memory precedes long after the day of rapture. Another early recollection is outstanding and literally so far I bear the scare to this day. My elder sister Uma and I were seated in the early morning under a neem tree in our Gorakhpur compound. She was helping me in my study of Bengali primer. What time I could spare my gaze from the neighborly parrots eating ripe mangoes fruit. Uma complained of a boil on her leg and fetched a jar of ointment. I smeared a bit of the slave on my forearm. Why do you use medicine on a healthy arm? Well, sis, I feel I am going to have a boil tomorrow. I am testing your ointment on the spot where the boil will appear. You little liar. Sis, don't call me a liar until you see what happens in the morning. Indications filled me. Uma, un- unimpressed. Threes repeated her taunt, and an adamant resolution sounded in my voice as I made slow reply. By the power of will in me, I saw that tomorrow I shall have a fairly large boil in this exact place on my arm, and your boil shall swell to twice its present size. Morning found me with a stalwart boil on the indicated spot. The dimensions of Uma's boil had doubled. With a shriek, my sister rushed to mother. Mukanda has become a narrow-manker. Gravely, mother instructed me never to use the power of words for doing harm. I have always remembered her counsel and followed it. My boil was surgically treated. A noticeable scare left by the doctor's injection is present today. On my right forearm is a constant reminder of the power in man's Shrivard. Those simple and apparently harmless farms of Uma spoken with dim, con- dim concretions had posed sufficient hidden force to explode like bombs and to proceed defined through injurious effect. I understood later that the explosive vibrative power in speech could be vastly direction to free one's life from difficulties and those operated without scare of rebuke. Our family moved to Lahore in the Punjab. There I acquired a picture of their divine mother in the form of the goddess Kali. It sent a small information shrine on the balcony on our home. An conviction come over me that fulfillment would crow any of my prayers uttered in that scare spot. Standing there with Uma one day, I watched the two boys flying kites over the roof of two buildings that we separated from our house by an extremely narrow lane. Why are you so quiet? Uma pushed me playfully. I am just thinking how wonderful it is that Divine Mother gives me whatever I ask. I suppose she would give you those two kites. My sister laughed derisively. Why not? I being silent. Prayers for their positions. Matches are played in India with kites whose straining are covered with glue and ground glass. Each player attempts to sever the string held by his opponent. A freed kite sails over the roofs. There is great fun in catching it. As Uma and I were on a reformed racist balcony, it seems impossible that a loosed kite could come into our hands. Its, its, its string would naturally dangle over the roof. The players across the land begin their match. One string was cut. Immediately, the kite floated in my direction. Owing to a sudden abatement on the breeze, the kite remained stationary for a moment, during which its string became firmly angled with a case plant on top of the opposite house. A long, perfect loop was formed for my seizures. I handed the prize of Uma. It was just an extraordinary accident and not an answer to your prayer. If the other kites comes to you, then I shall believe. Sister's dark eyes conveyed more amazement than her words. I continued my prayers with instantly. I forcible tube by the other prayer resulted in the abrupt loss of his kite. In headed toward me dancing in the wind, my helpful assistant, the cactus plant, again secured the kite string in the necessary loop by which I could grasp it. I present my second trophy of Uma. Indeed, Divine Mother, listen to you. This is all too uncanny for me. Sister bolt away like a frightened fawn. My mother's death and I mystic amulet. My mother's greatest desire was the marriage of my elder brother. When I behold the face of Anatha's wives, I shall find heaven on this earth. I frequently heard mother express in these words her strong Indian sentiment for family continuity. I was about 11 years old at the time of Anatha's betrothal. Mother's was in Calcutta, jealousy spiritedly and supervising the wedding preparations. Father and I alone remained at our home in barely in northern India, where father had been transferred after 2 years at Lahore. I had previously witnessed rites for my two elder sisters, Roma and Uma, but for Ananta, as the eldest son, plans were truly elaborated. Mother was welcoming numerous relatives, daily arriving in Calcutta from distant homes. She locked them comfortably in a large, newly acquired house at 50 Amherst Street. Everything was in readiness. The banquet delicious and the gay throne on which brother was to be carried to the home of the bride to be. The rows of colorful lights, the marathon cardboard elephants and camels, the English statues and Indian orchestras, the professional entertainments and entrance, the priest for the initiate rituals. Father and I, in gala spirits, were planning to join the family in time for the ceremony. Shortly before the great day, however, I had an ominous vision. It was in barely on a midnight as I slept beside father on the pizzas of our bungalow. I was awakened by a peculiar flutter of the mosquito knitting over the bed. The flimsy current transpired and I saw the beloved from of my mother, known your father. Her voice was only a whisper. Take the first available train at 4 o'clock this morning. Rush to Calcutta if you would see me. The wraith-like figure vanished. Father, father, mother is dying. The terror in my tone aroused him instantly. I stopped out the fatal techniques. Never mind the hallucination of yours. Father gave his characteristic negation to a new situation. Your mother is in excellent health. If we get any bad news, we shall leave tomorrow. You shall never forgive yourself for not starting now. Inducings caused me to add bitterly. Now shall I give and now shall I ever forgive you. The melancholy morning came with explicit words. Mother dangerously ill. Marriage postponed. Come at once. Father and I left distractedly. One of my uncles meet us and en route at a transfer point. A train thundered towards us. Looming with a telescopic increase from my inner tumult and abrupt determination, rose of her myself on the railway tracks. Already bereaved, I felt of my mother. I could not endure a world suddenly bare to the ban. I loved more and I loved mother as my dearest friend on earth. Her schooling back eyes and being my refuge in the trifling tradics of childhood. Does she yet live? I stopped for one last question to my uncle. He was not slow in interpret the description in my face. Of course, she will alive, but I scarcely believed him. When we reached our Kolkata home, it was only to confront the stunning mystery of death. I collapsed into an almost lifestyle state. Years passed before any reconciliations entered my heart, storming the very gates of heaven. My cries at least some months, the Divine Mother, her words brought final healing of my spiritual wounds. It is, it is I who have watched over three life after life in the tenderness of many mothers. See in my gaze the two black eyes, the lost beautiful eyes, those six. Father and I returned to barely soon after the the ceremonial rites of the well beloved. Early where every morning I made a patenthetic memorable pilgrimage to a large shrubby tree which shaded the smooth greenhold lawn before our bungalow. In potential moments, I thought that the white showy flowers were striving themselves with a willing devotion over the grassy at last, mingling tears with the dew. I often observed a strange, other worldly light emergency from the down. Uh, Intense pang of longing for the good God else led me. I felt powerfully drawn to the Himalayas, and one of my cousins, fresh from a period of travel in the holy hills, visited us in Barely. I listened eagerly to his table about the high mountain abode of yogis and swamis. Let us run away to the Himalayas. My suggestion one day to Dwarka Prasad, the young son of the landlord in Bareilly, fell on unsympathetic ears. He revealed my plan to my elder brother, who had just arrived to see father. Instead of laughing lightly over over this impractical schema of a small boy, Ananta made it a definite point of ridicule me. Where is your orange robe? You can't be a Swami without that. But I was, uh, explicably thrilled by his words. They brought me a clear picture, that of myself as a monk, ruminating about Indian. Perhaps they awakened memories of a past life. In any case, I realized with what the nature is, as I would never the grave of the anciently founded monastery order. Chatting on morning with Dwarka, I felt a love for a god descending with a well neck-like force. My companion was only partly attentive to the ensuring equivalence, but I was wholeheartedly listening to myself. I feel that afternoon toward Nainital in the Himalaya foothills, Ananta gave determined chase. I was forced to return sadly to Bareilly. The only plaguey image permitted me was the customary one at down of the Shioli tree. My heart wept from my two lost mother, one human or one denied, one divine. The rent that in the life and family fabric by mother's death was the irreparable. Father never remained during his nearly 40 remaining year, assuming the difficult role of the father-mother to his little flock. He grew noticeably. He more tender, more approachable, with a calmness and instinct. He solved the various family problems. After office hours, he retired like a hermitage to the cell of his room, prescribing Kriya Yoga, in a sweet century. Long after mother's death, I attempted to engage an English nurse to attend to detail which would make my parents' life more comfortable. But father shook his head. Service to me unended with your mother. His eyes were remote with a lifelong devotions. I will not accept ministrations from any other woman. 14, 14 months 14 months after mother's passing, I learned that she had left me a momentous message. Ananta had been present at her deathbed and had recorded her words. Thought she had asked that the disclosure be made to me in 1 year. My brother had delayed. He was soon to leave Bareilly of Kolkata to marry the girl that mother had chosen for him. One evening, he summoned me to his side. Mukunda, I was been recruited to give you strange tigglings. Ananta's tones held the note on a resignation. My fear was to inflame your desire to leave home, but in any case, you are bristling with denial around it. When I captured you recently on your way to Himalayas, I came of a defining resolve. I must not further postpone the fulfillment of my solemn promise. My brother handed me a small box and I delivered mother's messages. Let these words be my final blessings. My beloved son Mukunda, mother and head says, the hour is here when I must relate a number of phenomenal events following your birth. I first knew your destined path when you will but a baby in my arms. I carried you then to the home of my gurus in Banaras, almost hidden behind a throng of discipline. I could barely see Lahiri Mahashayas at he sat in deep meditation. While I petted you, I was praying that the great Guru take notice and bestow blessings. As my silent devotional demand grew in intensity, he opened his eyes and beckoned me to approach. The others made a way for me. I bowed at the scared Lahiri Mahashaya scared you on his lap, placing his hand on your forehead by way of spirituality, baptizing you. Little mother, their son will be a yogi, as a spiritual engine. He will carry many souls to God's kingdoms. My heart leaped with joy to find my secret prayer granted by the omniscient Guru. Shortly before your birth, he had told me you would follow his path. Later, my son, your vision of the great light was known to me and your sister Roma. As from the next room, we observed your motivational less on the bed. Your little face was illuminated, your voice ranged with iron resolve as you spoke of the going to the Himalayas in quest of diving. In these ways, dear son, I came to know that your road lies far from worldly ambitions. The most singular event in my life brought further confirmation and events which now implies my deathbed messages. It was an interview with a sage in the Punjab while our family was living in Lahore. One morning, the servant came into my room. Mistress, a strange sadhu is here. He insisted that he see the mother of Mukunda. These simple words struck a profound stirred within me. I, I went at once to greet the visitor. Bowing at his feet, I sensed that before me was a turned man of God. Mother, he said, the great masters wish you to know that your stay on earth shall not be long. Your next illness shall prove to be your last. There was a silence, during which I felt no alarm but only a vibration of the great peace. Finally, he addressed me again. You are to be the custodian of a certain silver amulet. I will not give it to you today to demonstrate the truth in my two words. The talisman shall materialize in your hands tomorrow. As you meditate on your deathbed, you must instruct your eldest son Ananta to keep the amulet for 1 year and then to hand it over. To your second son, Mukunda will understand the meaning of the talisman from the great ones. He should receive it about the time he is ready to renounce all worldly hopes and to start his vital search for God. When he has retained the amulet for some years and when it has served its purpose, it shall vanish, even if kept in the most secret spot. It shall return whence it came. I proffered alarms to the saint and bowed before him in great reverence, not talking to the offering, but he departed with a blessing. The next evening, as I sat with folded hands in a meditation, a silver amulet materialized between my palms, even as the sadhu had promised. It made itself known by a cold, smooth touch. I have jealously granted it for more than 2 years, and now leave it in Ananta keeping. Do not grieve me for, as I shall have been unheard by my great Guru into the arms of the infinite. Farewell, my child. My cosmic mother will protect you. A blaze of illuminations came over me with possessions of the amulet, many dormant memories of awakeness. The talisman, rounded and anciently quiet, was covered with Sanskrit characters. I understood that it come from teachers of the past lives, who were invisibly guiding my step. A further significance there was indeed, but one may not fully unveil the heart of an amuleted. How the talisman finally vanished aims deeply unhappy circumstances of my life, and how its loss was a hurdle of my gain of a guru, may not be told in this chapter. But the small boy thrived in his attempts to reach the Himalayas, daily travels far on the wings of his amuleted. The Sant with two bodies. Father, if I promise to return home without corrections, may I take a sightseeing trip of Banaras? My keen love of travel was seldom hindered by father. He permitted me, even as a mere boy, to visit many cities and pilgrimed spots. Usually, one of more of my friends accumulated and we would travel comfortably on first class pass provided by father. His position as a railway official was fully satisfactory to the nomads in the family. Father promised to give my request due consideration. The next day, he summoned me and held out a round trip pass from Bareilly to Banaras, a number of rupee notes and 2 letters. I have a business matter, no purpose to a Banaras friend, Kedarnath Babu. Unfortunately, I have a loss of his address, but I believe you will be able to get this letter to him through our common friend, Swami Parabananda. The Swami, my brother, discipline has attained an external spiritual stature. You will benefit by his company. This second note will serve as your introduction. Father's eyes twinkled as he added, mind no more flights from home. I set forth with the zets of my 12 years. Thought time has never demined my delicious innocence and strange face. It's reaching Banaras, I proceeded immediately to the Swami's residence. The front door was open. I made my way to a long, hall-like room, and on the second floor, a rather stout man, wearing only a loincloth, was seated in lotus posture on a slightly raised platform. His head and unwrinkled face were clean shaven. Uh, a satisfied smile played about his lips to dispel my thought that I had intruded. He greeted me as an old friend. Baba Ananda, his welcome was given heartily in a childlike voice. I knelt, touched his feet. Are you Swami Paran- Are you Swami Parbananda? He nodded. Are you Bhagwati's sons? His words were out before I had time to get father's letter from my pocket. In, uh, in astonishment, I handed him the note of introduction, which now seemed superfluous. Of course, I will locate Kedarnath Babu for you. The sons again surprised me by his calibrians. He glanced at the letter and made a few affectionate references to my parents. You know, I am enjoying two patients. One is by the recommendation of your father, for whom I once worked in the railway office. The other is by the recommendation of my heavenly Father, for whom I have consistently finished my earthly duties in life. I found this remark very obscure. What kind of patience, sir, do you receive from the heavenly Father? Does he drop money in your lap? He laughed. I mean a patient of Fatmolan's peace. Reward for many years to deep meditation. I never crave money now. My few material needs are amply provided for. Later you will understand the significance of a second patience. Um, Abruptly terminated our conversation, the sun becoming gravely motionless. A sphinx-like air enveloped him. At first, his eyes sparkled as if observing something of interest, then grew dull. I felt upset at his peculiarity. He had not yet told me how I might meet father's friend. I trifled distractedly. I looked about me in the bare room, empty except for us two. My idly gaze took in his wooden sandals lying under the platform seat. Little sir, don't get worried. The man you wish to see will be with you in the half an hour. The yogi was reading my mind, a feat not too difficult at the moment. Again he fell into inscrutable silence when my watch informed me that 30 minutes had elapsed. The Swami observed himself, aroused himself. I think Kedarnath Babu is nearing the door, he said. I heard somebody coming up the stairs, and amazed incomprehense arose suddenly. My thoughts recurred in confusion. How is it possible that father's friend has been summoned to this place without the help of messenger? The Swami has spoken to no one but me since my arrival. I unceremoniously quieted the room and descended the steps. Halfway down, I meet him, a thin, fair-skinned man of medium height. He appeared to be in a hurry. Are you Kedarnath Babu? Ex- uh, Excitement colored my voice. Yes, are you not a Bhagmati's son? Bhagwati's sons who has been waiting here to meet me. He smiled in friendly fashion. Sir, how do you happen to come here? I felt blessed resentment over his inexplicable presence. Everything is my situation today. Less than an hour ago, I had just finished my bath in the Ganga's when Swami Parambandhas approached me. I have no ideas how he knew I was there at the time. Bhagmati's sons is waiting for you in my apartment. He said, will you come with me? I gladly agreed as we protected hand in hand. The Swami in his wooden sandals was strangely about to outpace me. Though I wore these stout walking shoes, how long will it take you to reach my place? Paramnandaji suddenly halted to ask me this question. About half an hour. I have something else to do at the present. He gave me an enigmatical glance. I must leave you behind. You can join me in my house, where Bhagmati's sons and I will be awaiting you. Before I could remonstrate, he descended swiftly past me and disappeared in the crowd. I walked here as fast as possible. This explanation only increased my belief determined. I inquired how long he had known the Swami. We met a few times last year, but not recently. I was very glad to see him again today and the and the bathing ghat. I cannot believe my ears. Am I losing my mind? Did you meet him in a vision? Or did you actually see him? Touch his hand and hear the sound of his feet? I don't know what you are driving at. He flushed energetically. I am not lying to you, and I am not lying to you. Can't you understand that only through the Swami could I have known you are waiting at this place for me? So, we can talk about this question answer is the next video. So, thank you so much.